Tell the kids to grab their book, go to the back of the book, and there is an FYI. They're going to tear that FYI out of their book. There's always going to be a kid that refuses to follow instructions. So you're going to tear that out. So tear out your FYI. Kids are going to need to use a ballpoint pen or a regular number 2 pencil. Lead pencils will not work on this section. So have them pull it out. It's just stuck in there by some sticky stuff. They're going to want to do it straight on the table, not on top of a book or anything. This is a carbon copy. You have to press hard. The interest inventory is based on Dr. Holland, who is a psychologist, who said that if you start looking at personalities within specific career fields, you start seeing some similarities. And so what this is going to do is figure out your what I call your go-to personality. What is it in your brain that makes you enjoy a specific type of activity? So they call it an interest inventory, but it's not really interest. It's more like what kinds of activities you personally like to do. And you take those kinds of activities and you marry it with your skill and you find the perfect career for you. Okay, so if you pull this out, you're going to look at the very first question. The first question says, attend an art class. If you would attend an art class, it's free, it's not for a grade. If you would do that all by yourself, you would circle L. I like that. If you would only do that if your girlfriend or your boyfriend, we don't say wives or husbands because these kids aren't married. If your girlfriend or boyfriend asked you to do an art class and you would do it with them just because they asked, that's indifferent. You don't really care whether you do it. But if you wouldn't do it and you don't care who's asking you, that's D, dislike. I don't like it. But while you're doing it, don't think too hard about the question. It's asking you whether or not you would like to do that activity. Answer it just as fast as you can because we want to get your gut answer, not your analytical answers. Pull off this entire piece. Now the kids don't want to do this, but you're going to want them to. They're going to open their page up to the first page, all the way open. Now if they pressed hard enough, they're going to see a bunch of circles. You're going to place your ruler, or you can use your ASVAB summary results sheet, and you're going to place it across number 1. You're going to see different numbers circled. You're going to add those numbers up, not in the first box, but in the second box you're going to put that number. The kids will put them in the first box. If they want, I don't know why the first box is there, except to add an extra step, but it has to be in the colored ribbons. If you're doing the ASVAB interpretation on the computer, tell the kids to go to the bottom right-hand corner of their ASVAB summary results sheet, type in the URL asvabprogram.com, and enter in their access code, which is a series of all numbers, except for the very last digit, it's a letter. Their access codes are good for 2 years. Once the student enters their access code right here, press go. And for the student, for the first time they go into the program, once the internet works, under step 1, it's going to say take the FYI. Okay, but for us, I've already taken it. So we're going to just say return to the FYI results page. Okay, so I've taken this. It looks like another recruiter went in and retook it. Scroll down. I've had other recruiters use this, so you could go in and put your own scores in. I'll show you how to do that. But I know this isn't mine, but I know because this isn't my RACIT code. But the thing that you're going to notice is that when you do it out of the book, you might have your R as your highest or S as your highest, but this is coded or normed by gender. So this score is regardless of gender, just like out of the book, okay? So I know that I originally did this because the realistic code goes up. Realistic codes will go up for women and down for men, and social will go down for women and up for men. The reason being, and you don't know what these codes mean yet, but the reason being for that is because we are socially normed to think a specific way at birth, really. And if you think about it, how many of y'all have kids? Okay, quite a few of you. How many of y'all have girls? All right, what do you give little girls for gifts? Most people give girls dolls, cooking sets, tea sets, and we say stuff like, be nice to your baby, be helpful, help mommy clean. We give them vacuum cleaners and stuff like that. We are socializing girls at a very early age to be this social career field, which is helping others. It's a helping career. It has nothing to do with gender, but they're helping careers. And from the birth of girls, we teach them to be helpful. So girls will naturally score high in social on tests, because even to this day, when I take that test and it says, reassure a nervous patient, and I wrote dislike, I still feel guilty for doing that, because we're taught that girls should never dislike helping people. For realistic, we give boys trucks and cars and guns and Legos, because realistic careers or interests have to do with manipulating objects, working with our body, more kinesthetic type stuff. And so for boys, that realistic will be normed. What's an average realistic score for a guy? And so typically on this section, the realistic will go down. What it means is that the average score, what they do is they look at norming. What's an average score for a male in realistic? And then if you have a higher than that, it's just the way that this part will kind of correct. Because what this would do if it didn't correct for male or female, it would look like all males should go into realistic career fields and all girls should go into social career fields. And that's not the way it works, because it's just about the way we socialize boys and girls to think. Because there's a lot of guys that are social, and there's a lot of girls that are realistic. But if we don't adjust for test issues, and that's called norming. It's just it's something that psychometricians do. Yeah.
I got it.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about what these scores mean. So we're going to talk about these, and I'm going to give you some examples. So we're going to, first of all, I'm going to look in this room. So who had R as their highest one? Only you? You? Okay, R. So R, we talked about, is the realistic code. That means you like to work with your body, work with your hands, work outside. So if we look at, let's look at some career fields. If you turn your papers over on the guided notes exercise, I want you to look at career fields that only require a high school diploma. So if you're one of those people that likes to work with your hands or work with tools and you only have a high school diploma, what's a job, non-military, that you could do? Mechanic. The kids will always say mechanic, plumber, carpenter, construction worker. Those are all high school diploma specific kinds of jobs. So for realistic, if you're a realistic person, construction trades are great for you. Now let's say you get a technical degree or a 2-year degree. What kind of jobs are there out there for people with a 2-year degree that are realistic, that require some kind of technical training? Something maybe with computers?
Mechanical engineer.
Well, mechanical engineer requires a 4-year degree, but how about a mechanical technician or some kind of an engineering tech? Technicians are usually 2-year degrees, but they're in the manipulative fields. So when we look at engineering, engineerings are IR, engineering techs are RI, and I'll tell you what I means in a minute. But the engineer is the one that's figuring out, investigating how to create something. The technician is the one that makes it work and keeps it working. The R with a 4-year or more degree would be engineering. It would be maybe a dentist, a surgeon. Okay, you would hope that your surgeon likes to use tools because they use a lot of them in surgery. The realistic field really in today's world is almost every career because we all use computers in our jobs. Computers and driving are realistic type career fields. And we all have to use computers and we all have to drive in our jobs. So realistic is kind of hard to say I don't like realistic at all. It's 0 because almost everything requires some amount of realistic activity. The next one we're going to talk about is C. Did anybody have C as their highest one in here? No? Okay, C is our conventional people. There are people that like to see everything in black and white. It's right or wrong. It's good or bad. They like schedules. They like to do everything the same way every time. So let's look at some careers that require that. So high school diploma career that requires right or wrong. Police officers, right. You don't have to have a degree to be a police officer, but police officers need to be a little bit on the conventional side. They're also going to be realistic and a little social, but because there's a lot of law, anything that has a lot of regulations in it is going to be realistic. Okay, so let's look at something that might require a 2-year degree or a vocational degree that's conventional. Someone working with numbers, a bookkeeper, a paralegal clerk, maybe an LPN. Okay, and then if we look at the 4-year degree, we have accountants, financial managers, lawyers, human resource specialists, a lot of rules when it comes to hiring and firing, and that's kind of the conventional, and you always know the conventional person because they're very scheduled and they don't like it. They're almost a little bit OCD-ish if you're looking at a very stereotypical conventional person. All right, the next one we're going to look at is I, investigative. Who is investigative in here? Okay, we got a couple of you. That was your highest one? You raised your hand for R? Okay, investigative are 2 high people. Investigative people like to solve problems and think about things. Why do things work the way they do? You know, I find if you're a stereotypical investigative person, you like puzzles, you know, Sudoku, crossword, all that kind of stuff where you're always looking at stuff. You may watch the History Channel, the Science Channel. Almost all of these career fields require a 4-year degree because investigative is science related. So let's try to think that if you are investigative but you only have a high school diploma, what you could maybe do. Because you're not going to go to college for science. So what can we think of? Maybe a field tech? What about a police officer is going to have a little bit of investigative, you think? Investigative 2-year degrees could be an engineering tech. We've talked about the engineering techs. There are RIs. A detective on a police force. Unfortunately, most of the I degrees are science or history or something like that. It's a little bit harder to find careers that don't require 4-year degrees in investigative. E for enterprising. Anybody have E as their top one? E are my bossy people. They like to be in charge. They like to make decisions. So you have 2 different kinds of E people. You have the ES careers and you have the EI careers. And because we haven't really talked about social yet, social people like to help people. So if you are a bossy person that likes to help people, we're talking about managerial type careers. Being in charge of other people. If you don't have that social factor in there, you become Shannon's employee. And people do not like working for Shannon because I don't have that human element that much. And sometimes I forget about the human element and only think about the mission. And that can sometimes cause people not to like you. Because I'm like, I don't care that your dog died. We got to get this done. Okay, but a good manager will be like, oh, you know, I'm really sorry your dog died. You need to take an hour to cry or whatever. So enterprising, if you're not an ES person, then you're going to look at specialty type things where you're like what I do. I kind of work for myself. So it could be anything from entrepreneurial or maybe a chef. So if you're looking at like non-degree, although most chefs now have some kind of a technical training of 2 years, but like chef or truck driver, someone who works in a tool booth, if they're not social and they're E and they like to be in charge, if you're not educated and you like to be in charge of stuff, there's not a whole lot of career fields out there. So it's going to be something that you do alone, like driving a truck or working at a toll booth or a parking lot attendant. And the E people are just self-starters, really. The E person never needs to be told, don't forget PTs at 6:30 tomorrow. Okay, I'm a very strong E person. I hate being reminded of the things I need to do because I know what I need to be done. But non-E people, if their E is really low, they're the ones that have to be reminded, don't forget to be here 10 minutes early for PT or whatever, okay? Because they're just not self-starters. There's no right or wrong. This is just kind of how we are, all right? So E, when it comes to like a 4-year degree, it could be anywhere from manager to like CEO, that kind of stuff comes up. Social, we've talked about a lot, but that's the helping careers. Nurses, teachers, doctors, recruiters, policemen, firemen, almost all the careers that you know are social, because we don't interact with engineers and accountants on a daily basis. So if I'm driving down the street and I get pulled over, I see a police officer, I see a fire truck. If I'm sick, I go to the doctor. So most of the time we're only interacting with social people that are in social careers for the most part. And most kids, that's all they know of, is those social careers. And that's why most kids will say, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a teacher. Nobody says, I want to be an actuary scientist, because nobody knows what that is. An actuary scientist is someone who calculates risk for insurance companies. And they get paid about $80,000 out of college with a 4-year degree. And then the last one, artistic. Whoever took this had 0. Who had artistic as their top one? They were tied, okay, artistic. The artistic person is the person that likes to think outside the box. And a lot of people will confuse, like with social, they'll confuse artistic with being skilled in the fine arts. Now, artistic people who are skilled in the fine arts are artistic. But just because you're artistic does not mean you're skilled in the fine arts. So just because Sergeant Stillwell is artistic, that does not mean he's going to be a singer or a dancer. Okay? It means he's creative in his thinking. So let's take what we learned here and we're going to do a project. So let's say the colonel comes in and says, you guys got to rearrange this entire office. I'm the I person in here. No, I'm the E person because no one else was an E. You're going to be the I person. You're going to be the A person. You're the S person. Did any of you all have C? No? Okay, you're both realistic. Well, I know she's a C person. All right, so what we're going to do is based on the personality traits, this is how this is going to work. All right? Our 2 guys in the back, they're going to be the first ones to be like, I'm going to get this chair. I'm going to just start taking everything outside. Because say the colonel says everything has to go outside before we can put it back in. All right? My investigative person over here is already like, how could we rearrange this room? So he's standing over here going, let me think about where we could place everything in the best possible place to meet whatever the requirements are. All right? And then we have Sergeant Stillwell over here going, well, I think that we could maybe put some streamers, and he's going to try to come up with the most creative way to design. So now I'm going to have conflict probably between Sergeant Stillwell and Sergeant Milne, because he's the investigative. He's saying this is going to be the best way to do it, but you want it to look aesthetically pleasing. And you have these 2 guys who are just taking everything out with no regard to anything else. Okay, Sharon's in the corner going, hey guys, according to the regulation, everybody has to have 45 square feet of space, and the telephones have to be, and wait a minute, blah, 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 blah. And I'm trying to tell everybody what to do because I like to make the decisions, and everybody's going crazy. And then Sergeant Harry's going, guys, nice? Can't we just get along? You know, let me help you. Let me help. Okay, so this is the stereotype of these different scenarios, right? Because Sergeant Harry's the one that when I drop my pen, she runs over and picks it up, right? Because she likes to help people. She wants everybody to feel good. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Am I right about you're going to start thinking about how to rearrange? Am I right that you guys are going to automatically start picking everything up and taking it out?
Yes, get work.
Am I right, Sharon, that you're going to be like pulling out regs? Yes, you are. I know you too well. And you're going to start thinking about how to creatively put this whole together, right? Absolutely. And I'm going to stand back and tell everybody what to do and how to do it. And I know that's how I am because that's how I am. I'm an EI. All right, so that's how that works. When I do it with kids, I do the same kind of scenario, except I try to use something in a classroom. It's not a good scenario to use if you have a large group of kids, but if you're doing classroom size in the computer lab, to tie it together, I tell them that the teacher has them do a project, and you have the helper who's helping the kid on the crutches, and you have the bossy kid that's trying to tell everybody what to do. It just kind of helps tie it in. It's very stereotypical because we're not all just one way. Not all enterprising people are bossy, but they are going to have some elements of the same personality. So the second part of this, if you're doing it on the website, is the actual exploring your careers. And under step 2, it says explore careers with the occupied. So that you're going to have the students click on that, and this is going to come up. So if you scroll down, scroll up just a tiny bit for me. If you see here, the student's top 3 interest code's going to show up. Remember how I said you're not just one interest code, you're a combination. So this student, which is an RCI, could search R careers, C careers, or I careers. All right? So what they're going to do is we try to tell them to do their top one, so they're going to bubble in realistic. And then we're going to go back to the ASVAB summary results sheet. And remember I said we're going to use their career score? For this student, what was their top career score? On the ASVAB summary results sheet. I always have them look at their percentile score based on their gender. Which one was the highest one for that lady? Verbal. It was verbal. So she's going to type in verbal, but she's realistic. So this is going to come out pretty interesting. And we're going to click search. There's going to be 3 websites that we're going to look at and show the students, because all we're doing is showing them how to use the website. We're not actually doing career searches for them. So you see, remember we talked about realistic, you're going to see some engineering coming up, and over here is where verbal skills, in this first column over here, is where verbal skills are most important. So we know she's not very good at math, so let's see if we can find a career where math isn't used a lot. Let's look at landscape architect. So we're going to have the student click on landscape architect, and this is, oh, yeah, exit out of that. This is a AI. How did we get an A if we were on realistic careers? How did that happen? All right, that's okay. This is an AI career. Is A in her top 3? I would suggest to that student to find one where realistic or RCI is in here. Okay? So this may not be the best one, but let's just pretend it is for the sake of this. So the first thing we want to do is, the students don't know what a landscape architect is, I guarantee it. So we're going to click on the Occupational Outlook Handbook. A screen's going to pop up, and what we want the kids to do is go to, what is it? So it'll say what they do. Landscape architects plan and design land areas for parks, recs, private homes, da-da-da-da-da. Tells them what it is. The very least, when a kid's doing a career exploration, is to say, what do they do? If they like what they do, then they'll say, well, how do I become one? This is going to tell the student what kind of education they need. Not everything requires an education. Most things require at least a 2-year degree or some kind of vocational training. This one in particular says a master's or a bachelor's degree. Who would have known, right? So if a student says this is something they want to do, they already know that they're going to have to get a bachelor's degree at a minimum. And sometimes under one career, there's sub-careers, and that will be in here as well. It'll tell them what the sub-careers are and what the different education is required for it. The things that kids want to know is what the pay is. So let's look at the pay. Average pay is about $64,000. That's not too bad, a little bit higher than the median income in the United States. So that's the basic stuff that you want kids to look at. I'll tell them to get out of there so we can just exit. And the next one is the ONET. The ONET is a technical website that gives you very technical information. ONET will say, what are the exact duties that you do as a landscape architect? What are the exact technical skills you need? So if you click on that, did you click on it? There we go. That's what this is going to give. So let's say a kid's looking at, like, they want to become a doctor, but they are a germaphobe. Under this task, it'll say, will be exposed to communicable diseases. Well, if you're a germaphobe, do you think that would be a good job? Or like electricians, one of the tasks says, crawl into really small spaces. Well, if you're claustrophobic, that's probably not the best career for you. So if you scroll down, it'll just give you a general idea of technical information for that specific field. Okay, and at the very bottom, under state, you can look up information that's specific to your state. And it'll take you to another website where they can actually search for scholarships. And I can show you guys that later at another time. And this will also give you some related occupations. If you're in an occupational field or you're looking at one that doesn't have a very good job outlook, you might want to have the students come down here, or yourself if you're planning on getting out. And the careers that have suns or leaves, those are career fields that are expanding right now. So if you really want to be a landscape architect, but it's not a growing field, you can look at it and say, well, construction managers are both green and growing. So green is the new word. Green is like STEM, right? The government is funding green jobs, environmentally friendly. Okay, so we're going to exit out of there. And the next one is going to be the military career website, which we don't have. So let's click back. Just click back for a second. And let's click on Armored Vehicle Assault Crew Member, just so you can see what the website looks like. Scroll down. I don't know why that keeps coming up. Click on the military career website. I always take students to this website because they need to know that the military is a viable career. Over here it'll say which branches of the service have it, so only the Army and the Marines. Okay, so if you really want to be in the Navy and you want to work on an armored vehicle assault crew member, you're not going to do it. Just like if you want to go in the medical field but you want to be a Marine, you're not going to do it because the Navy has the medical field for the Marine Corps. If they click on these sites underneath services offering this occupation, that will take them to the recruiting website. If they click on the top of the website where it says Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, that takes you to like a generic site that says what's Army basic training like, how to become an officer, the U.S. Military Academy. So it's kind of a non-recruiting site, but it can still take them to the recruiting website. So that's what the military site looks like. And then you can also select by job family. So if you click on job family, if you click on that, and let's say you want to look at all the jobs that have construction, building, and extraction, it'll show you all the different career paths underneath that particular cluster. So that's kind of cool. I like to get on there every now and then and kind of look at stuff. So you can exit out of that. And that's usually all you have time for in an interpretation, is to get them through those websites. You might have a little bit of time for the kids to just play with it and ask some questions.